Hello everyone and welcome to the To Explore Wellness channel. I'm so happy you're joining me. Today we're going to be making one of my favorite warming winter dishes, homemade lentils and Spaetzle, a traditional German meal. Let's start by making our Spaetzle. If you haven't heard of it before, it's a German pasta made with simple ingredients, just flour, egg, and either milk or water. I made this version with whole wheat flour for some added fiber and nutrients, but you can also use white flour, or if you don't want to make your own from scratch, you can also find it in the store. This dish is really special to me because the only time I really ever ate it was when I visited my German grandmother, and it was one of my absolute favorite meals she made. Well, I guess it might have been tied with the apple pancakes, and if you didn't watch my spin on those, make sure to take a look at my recipe playlist after you finish watching this one. As you can see, to make a large batch of about 6 to 8 servings, I use 2 cups of flour, followed by 4 eggs and a half a cup of water. You can half or even double this mix if you want for serving a large crowd or even for meal prep. Have you ever had Spaetzle before? Share in the comments, I'd love to know. Once I got all my ingredients in a large bowl, I then used my Braun hand whisk to whip up the mixture. This hand tool is part of a larger set, and honestly, I use at least one piece of it multiple times a week. It's super convenient and easy to use. I'll add a link to it in the description so you can check it out for yourself. You'll notice the dough wasn't quite the right consistency at first, so we added a little bit more water bit by bit to get the desired texture. If it's too thick, it can get stuck in the molds, but if it's too thin, you won't get the right size or texture of the noodle, as it will drip right through the mold. I started with just half a cup of water, but probably ended up adding about a full cup in the end to get the mixture just a little drippy. While I'm mixing this up, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more healthy and delicious recipes. I've got some really good ones coming up that you won't want to miss. You can even check out my recipe teaser playlist to get a glimpse. Look at that drip, perfect. Let's go ahead and move over to the stove. In order to cook the noodles, you'll need to have a large pot of water come to a boil, as well as a Spaetzle maker or another kitchen tool in its place. I got lucky and found this piece from my salad spinner that had perfectly sized holes for Spaetzle and sat perfectly on top of my pot. Though in case you want to look into a Spaetzle maker, I'll link one in the description. We're going to scoop the mixture and spread it across the holes, letting it do its thing and drip into the boiling water. If following this recipe, use about 1/3 of the mix at a time so you can remove the cooked pasta and your pot never gets too full. Make sure to let the pasta sit for a minute or so before scooping it out with a sieve to let the water drain, followed by placing it into a colander in a bowl to drain even more. Make sure to keep your water at a rolling boil as you finish the remainder of your batches. Once you add your Spaetzle to a bowl, I suggest immediately adding some butter or olive oil to your Spaetzle, as otherwise it will stick together. Make sure to mix well together to ensure full coverage. Some people also like to brown their Spaetzle in a pan before serving for a slight crisp. I ended up doing that for some of my leftovers, and it was delicious. Now we're going to go ahead and get our ingredients ready for the lentils. For this dish, I chopped up a few celery stalks, carrots, as well as an onion into small pieces. I also ended up adding kale in the end, but since that goes in later due to its shorter cooking time, it doesn't need to be prepped with these veggies. I like to chop my veggies pretty small for this dish so you can get them all in one spoonful along with the lentils. I'm really curious, when it comes to chopping an onion, do you dice it the same way I do? I know there's so many different ways to do it, so I'm really wondering what method you use in your kitchen. I know my method might not be the quickest, but to be honest, it's a habit by now. I'd love to know what you do in the comments and if it's the same or different than mine. When it comes to carrots, you'll notice that I typically use baby carrots in my recipes. Honestly, it's because I snack on them a lot and I like to have them conveniently on hand to just grab and snack on. You can of course use whatever you prefer in this recipe. Just make sure you chop them into small pieces just like your other veggies. Let's go ahead and move all of our veggies over to the stove. We're also going to need to heat a large pan on medium-low and add some olive oil before dumping in the chopped veggies. I typically prefer olive oil, but you can also use avocado if you prefer. Mix them up real well to get them coated in the oil and cook for about 5 to 7 minutes, stirring occasionally. While cooking, make sure you rinse your lentils. Brown lentils are typically used for this dish, but I gave red a try this time. I also had no idea that rinsing them would make them stick together so much, so you can see it was a bit of a struggle getting them into the pot, but I still did it. Break them up next time if you're struggling. After you add your lentils, we're gonna go ahead and add a broth of your choice. I decided to use beef broth, but of course if you're keeping this dish vegetarian, feel free to use vegetable. The seasonings for this are extremely simple and just use a bay leaf and some salt and pepper. You can of course experiment with a few different flavors, but we're also going to be adding vinegar later for an added level of taste. Make sure to give it a good stir before putting the lid on and allowing it to cook for approximately 20 minutes or so, stirring occasionally. Once the lentils are mostly soft and in about the last 5 to 10 minutes or so of cooking, I ended up adding a can of black lentils, which is totally optional. I also added some chopped ham for some added protein, but feel free to use cooked sausages or even just keep it vegan. Vinegar is also added at this time, and I started with about 1/4 cup, but I honestly added quite a bit more because that's how I personally prefer the taste. Of course, feel free to adjust to your liking. Though it's not videoed here, I also added in the kale at this time, and then you just cook until the kale is wilted and all added ingredients are nice and hot. And now the best part. Time to grab a plate, pile on your Spaetzle, and serve with your hot lentils on top. I hope you enjoyed making this dish with me. Make sure to check the description for the full recipe as well as calories and macronutrients. If you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe buttons to ensure you don't miss any easy, healthy, and delicious recipes. See you next time.